Hello class. Today I'm going to show you how to start a bust, and that is a figure from here up or maybe from here up, but not just a neck with a head. That would be slightly unstable. We're going to make at least some of the shoulders to balance out this, this head and this coiling project. So I'm starting with some clay, and I am going to roll out a slab. And I'm going to make this not a life-size bust, but much, much smaller than that, shrunken down. I attempted to make a smaller one earlier, and it got big on me. So I'm going to start smaller than I had initially intended, knowing this about myself. So this is around a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch thick, and I'm going to want that for a nice nice base. So there, that's a little closer to 1/4. And I'm going to start with an oval shape. I don't want it too narrow. I mean, think about like a book. It can easily, get knocked over, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to take this and I'll make it just a little bit bigger. At least 3 inches deep, so that it kind of can hold its shape a little bit better. Then I'm going to take some of this slip and I'm going to make my first coil. My first coil is going to be rounded so that it'll be a little bit stronger. And I always think about it like the foundation of a house. So if that bottom part is just a little stronger, the whole thing on top of it will be stronger. If it starts out weak and thin, same thing. So always think about it like that. And so again, I'm making that coil, and it's about a 1/2 inch thick. I'm just going to take that round side to round side over that area I just slipped, smush that down a little, and have that connect back. And then I'm going to connect the coil on each side downward, just like that. So these pinching skills that you learned in the first project and the second project, the cup or the mug and the bowl, and even the sculpting, this all comes back, back to ceramics one, now that you're moving into more complex projects in ceramics too. Some of these beginning things, though, they don't just go away. Those skills kind of stay with us. So now this is a little bit better than the large one I'll be taking out shortly. Now I'm going to put a couple of coils on, and I'll bring out a sculpture I started earlier. You can see behind me I have some life-size figures, not life-size, I'm sorry, figures from the feet up, and I have them attached to more of a slab, but in this case this is going to be fairly structured on its own, because it's going to be the open feet and open legs on that sculpture would have made it just a little bit more fragile. Okay, so I'm rolling out a coil, and now I'm going to flatten this one, just like we did with all the other projects. We're coiling, and I am going to attach that on with my hand going up fairly vertically. Remember, I can push out and push in to shape it, but I want it not going too far out right now. And now for this coil, I'm going to swoosh down on the inside, and on the outside, I'm going to bring that coil up. And I can probably put 2 or 3 coils on to start with. And you might be thinking, well, are there going to be arms? And I'm going to, instead of adding arms, I'm going to push in eventually and push out to create just the silhouette of arms maybe. Or this one might be a little bit shorter than this other one that I'll take out in a second. So I'm going to work on making sure the inside and the outside are both really well smooth. And for this one, it's going to be a little bit shorter than the one I started earlier. And it's going to come in about like here and come up to a neck. But for each section, I will have to let that set up. Now, if I bring this one that I started that was supposed to be small out, you can see that I started making, just pressing in to make where the armpit kind of starts. To do that, I came to the very outside and pressed in pretty hard. And you can see the clay kind of bulges out around it, but you can even further that by pressing out using your rib and your hands. So this would be the back of my figure, and this is my front here. I'm starting to get to the point where I'm close to starting my shoulders. And so you get to this point and it kind of has to set up a bit. Then you can start your shoulders inward towards your neck. You don't want to see this a lot, but people sometimes will just make a big pancake and just try to shove it on. And that's just going to make a flat coil, a flat shoulder across. And what you'll want to do is build in slowly and kind of with an arch to create that shoulder. So I'm going to start, and you see how the angle of my hand is going to move that clay in kind of that arch shape that I was just talking about. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And if at any time you feel like it's kind of getting out of control, you can get out your paddle. Well, more than that, you can let it set up. It doesn't have to set up all the way to leather hard, but it does need to, set up so it becomes just a little drier. If it's too wet, it will fall apart. All right, now I'm going to move that coil up. Same thing on this one. And I'm not doing too much with this yet. I'll probably be adding coils on here as well to kind of start creating that neck. But right now I'm going to bring this in just a little bit first. And I'm constantly smoothing. And the reason I'm doing that is not just so that the surface looks good. It's so that the surface is stronger. If I just keep coiling on top of that, which is something I think I used to do early on, I would end up with a really lumpy wall, but I'd also end up with a really weak wall. So as I'm doing this, if I need to, I can take out my paddle and I can compress it with it and take it and bring it back in. And one last thing I want to show you before, because this does have to set up a bit before I keep working on it, is I'm going to put on a fake little sleeve onto my figure. And I wanted to show you how I do that. So I'm going to take a coil. And again, this got a little tall on me. I was going much smaller than that. And for what you're doing for my class, I suggest you try to really shrink it down. This is probably maybe like 6.5 inches, where this one, I don't know, huge. Got too big. And not because I wanted it to get like that. Seems like no matter how small I try to make things, sometimes they stay large. So now where I'm going to want my little sleeve, I'm going to add this coil on, and I'm going to do that on both sides, trying to make sure to line it up correctly. Make sure it's right. Yeah, it looks good. And then instead of connecting the whole thing, I'm just going to bring the clay up on the one side as if that was a sleeve. And that gives the illusion of it without adding too much on. Without creating a big slab and connecting that on. Right, and then I'm going to use my rib on the outside. My hand is on the inside, giving it support. And like I said, you know, this is really tall. You can make just the shoulders. It doesn't have to come up quite this high. This got a little away from me. If I wanted to have this kind of stick out a little bit, I can kind of get my finger underneath it, and I can kind of scale up that edge to make it a little bit more interesting. I'll do that again here. So I'm just lifting that up. But that's just some kind of, you know, sleeve. And then I'm going to have to let this set up and work in a little bit more to the neck. Your next video will be coming in at the neck. So remember, you start with a little oval. You're going to build it up and in, as I've already started doing here. Maybe make arms if you want them. And then you will, when we come back for the second video, we'll start on the neck. Thank you.